Alright, here it is. Keep in mind that I am trudging through flashbacks and have terrible dexterity. That point will be explained later. Be me, a 20-year-old loser who would rather spend his time making maps for StarCraft Brood War than to actually go out with friends. Turned 20 that day, so my dad and a couple friends dragged me out of my apartment to go out drinking. Sitting at the bar counter, and within 10 minutes of initial arrival, everyone who came with me is gone, doing something else, as usual. Probably look like shit, but this girl sits right beside me. She keeps glancing over at me, almost like someone looks at an amputee's stub. Curious, but kind of disgusted at the same time. She says, "Is there a reason you look like a horde of elephants stomped all over you?" Shit is kinda funny, so I smile. Her face lights up like a fucking supernova. Well, I guess you could say that's what living in a basement apartment does to you. I think I'd burst into flames if I stepped out in broad daylight. It goes from there. We laugh, we tell each other stories, and we get along just fine. I see my friends and dad file out through the door, peeking at me, almost as though they know we're hitting it off. Eventually ask for her number, to which she smiles in that odd whimsical way of hers. "Well, I'll write it backwards, just so you don't drunk dial me." I smile. I don't remember ever smiling this much in a day, even if it was just 4 to 5 times. A couple more hours pass, and we decide to split for the night. I had work the next day. I work from home. I go outside, light up a smoke, and see my band of merry men outside, just waiting for me. They demand every detail on the way home. Somehow, even as I recollect a happy evening, I can't smile, even though it had already made me do it a few times. The next day, remember, I have the number in my pocket. I was too drunk to actually get changed. I call her up, and she answers with the same chipper voice she had all of last night. I start to think she's a fucking battery of positivity. Arrange to go see her at her workplace after her shift for dinner, so we can get to know each other a little more. Get there in my typical trench coat, jeans. She just seems so happy to see me, and I wonder why anyone would ever be happy to see someone like me. We go to this fancy French restaurant after I make the claim I can speak French, and she has me translate every item on the menu. Every time I say something in French, she gets all giddy. She settles on a plate of pork chops. Meanwhile, I forget to order. I'm too stuck observing her as we speak, and don't even notice that she stops and orders, or even notice the waiter. She doesn't say anything about it. As we keep talking, she suddenly says something that makes me question myself completely. "You know, the more I talk to you, Anon, the more I feel closer and closer to you. I think I might be falling for your charms." She says that last part in an odd tonality. I can't tell whether she's joking or not. But most of all, I don't know how I feel. I hadn't felt anything for a long time, but I could feel something. I just didn't know what it was. Was it fear? Was it love? Was it happiness? I couldn't even tell the difference anymore, but somehow, she evoked a feeling out of me. I tell her I don't know how I feel, because I haven't felt anything in a long time. She doesn't instantly think I'm a moron, an emo manchild, or anything of the sort. She just gives me this quizzical sad look. After a minute or two of silence, and me thinking I scared her, she says, "I want to make you feel things, Anon. I know you can." I'm a little afraid, but we keep seeing a lot of each other. Spending afternoons at the Plains of Abraham, roaming old Quebec, just basically doing a bunch of teenagery shit neither of us got the chance to. Her dad was abusive and never let her leave the house, so she couldn't escape when he'd go on drunken rampages. We explored the city together, and one day, we found this small antique shop and took a look inside. Funny enough, they sold floppy drives. As we perused the shop, she found this old Caribbean sculpted pearl necklace of a doe and a stag, with their necks together, as if they were hugging. She loved it, but it was so far from her price range. It was $900. We were both poor at the time, so we decided to just go back. I walked her home, and she invited me in. We sat down on beanbag chairs she had in the living room. Since I had never had one, I was curious. We just sat and talked for a few hours, drinking tea. Before we know it, it's midnight. I tell her I should probably get back, so she walks me to the door, where I realize something. Leaving is making me feel terrible, and every time I see her, I feel happy. I tell her I think I love her, but not to quote me on it, I'm still unsure. The look in her eyes is probably the most happy memory I have. She flings her arms around me, and me, being the uncomfortable faggot I am, just stands there, awkwardly, but she doesn't seem to care. I hear her whisper into my chest, "Will you date me, Anon? Do you think I'm good enough?" I'm shocked. Of course I will, I'm the one who should be worried about not being good enough. She smiles in a way that says, "Don't be stupid." I go home. The relationship goes well, with my occasional surprising her at the end of her shift with daylilies, her favorite flower. Her making me supper. The self-made animations for her. We're overall a very gushy couple. We both love each other so much. Fast forward a year and a half. One night, I rent out a boat, just a small rowboat, and I take her to the Chutes Montmorency at after dark. I get on one knee, or try to, and end up collapsing, sharp pains in my knees, spine and arms. I black out. I wake up in the hospital, my whole body feeling weighted down, as if I was made of lead. She is sleeping in a chair with her head on my lap. I look down, there's needles plugged into my arms and electrodes on my chest. I look around and see the ring case on my bedside table, the same one I was going to offer her the day I collapsed. It's been 3 days since, according to the calendar on the wall. I wiggle my leg around a little, feeling it start to go numb, and accidentally wake her up. I could see the tracks of makeup from her crying, but right now, she's nothing but smiles. "It's alive," she says, always making a joke out of everything. I smile, a small shooting pain running through my jaw. She tells me to wait a second, that the doctor told her to tell him if ever I woke up. The doctor comes in and smiles, that artificial smile doctors have. "Welcome back to the world of the living," he says. I thank him as he asks me if I'm feeling okay enough to eat, to which I answer positively. He tells me I should probably take the lady out and try again, motioning at the ring case. He also tells me she's been here for 3 days, waiting for me to awaken. I ask him what happened, and he tells me he has no clue. I tell him about the pain in my jaw, then scratch my back, to which I get another shooting back thing time from my fingers to my shoulder. The doc is puzzled, but he tells me to report back to the hospital later on today for observation, but to go for dinner first. He unplugs the IV and takes the electrodes away. I grab the ring case and stagger out of the room, my woman in tow. I can feel her eyes burning into me, as though she's making sure I'm alright. I manage to make it to a restaurant a little further up the street. We sit down. I tell her I have a business proposal. She grins. I tell her that by accepting, she accepts to spend the rest of her life with me in exchange for half my shit, plus a diamond ring. She says I had her at spending the rest of her life with me. I slip the ring on her finger, and she says something about being a pimp. I laugh, and our food arrives. We had called on the way, so we could get back to the hospital quicker. We eat in what would have to be the complete opposite of silence, talking with our mouths full, talking then they're empty, anything just to make up for the 3 days we both lost. Eventually we talk over that we should stay at her place. We go back to the hospital, and I kiss her goodbye. Had a few kisses with her before, but this is the first one I remember because of when it happened. I go back upstairs, and the doctor tells me to report to neurology. Go down 2 floors and enter the neurology department. I go to the counter, and I am directed to room 202. I go there. It's a room, a normal bed, not even one of those fancy ones. A TV, a bathroom, kind of like a 2-room apartment. A neurologist drops by to tell me they want to do a nerve conductivity study or something along those lines. They don't tell me anything more than it will be tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning comes along, and they do the study. They also tell me to come back next week for another. And another. And another. And another. And more. And toss in another. And countless more. It seems to be a never-ending cycle of tests. I start to cry myself to sleep at night, not knowing what's wrong with me. Alice, my fiancée, always being there for me and comforting me. I know I'm being a child over this, but I find the situation terrifying. weekly nerve and blood tests, and no one is telling me anything, even the doctors have no clue. Until I get a phone call from my first doctor, urging me to come see him whenever I can. I drop by the day afterwards, and he looks kinda downed when he sees me. We step into his office and he looks at me, her, then me again, and tells it like it is. My nerves are deteriorating. Though they don't know why, it won't be affecting my motor functions for now, only my sense of touch. They think my collapse is an indicator that it will eventually hit my motor functions. Alice cries, my heart is crushed. The doctor says it's hard to say when the motor function will deteriorate enough to kill me, and there isn't much they can do. We head home, and I drive. I feel free, enjoying every texture I can feel, just because I still can. I still feel crushed, knowing that eventually, I won't be able to feel my future wife's touch, or anything at all. As days turn to weeks, I try to stay optimistic, going for my tests every month, but I know what they'll say, it isn't getting any better, and I can feel my sense of touch fading a little more each day. But with every day, my panic grows, and my lover's worry and stress grows, the smile on her face fading, and the lights in her eyes going out. On one of my testing days, I come back, by now barely having any sense of touch. I enter our place and see a note on the coffee table. I figure she must just be running late today. I don't read the note, and I go to bed. I feel pretty exhausted. I wake up the next morning, and there's still no sign of her. I go over to the living room and take a look at the note. I love you too much to stay and watch you slowly waste away, I'd rather die first. Goodbye Anon, I really wish I could have been stronger for you, but I couldn't bear the thought of seeing you die on the inside slowly. From Alice on the other side of the sheet, there's an address. I look it up and it's the address for a morgue. I call. It rings. A gruff voice answers, we don't have the goddamn time. I manage to stutter out that my fiancée killed herself or so I think. The man tells me a woman killed herself behind the morgue, shot herself in the heart. He asks me to come down and ID her. Get down there as quick as I can. The man ushers me into the room. She's laying there, white as a ghost. Her delicate eyes closed for the last time, looking exactly the same way she did the night I met her. I realize it had been the first time I see her look anything but sad in a long time. I cry. I cry fucking hard. If you could do me the favor, it would be nice if you could save the story and post it on these threads, because there will be a time where I won't be around to carry her memory and help the others like me, because I can't be alone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe.